One of the films screening at this year's Transitions Film Festival online in Australia is a film called Barricade, quite an incredible document about protest. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the director of Barricade, David Klammer. David, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Hi, Peter. Yeah, thanks a lot that you asked me to give you some comments on this documentary. Great. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
This is such an interesting story about a group of activists between 2019 and 2020 who protested the felling of trees in the Damnerode forest.
Damnerode forest, yes.
Yeah. So tell me, how did it all begin that you were able to film all of what was going on?
I think I had some credits with the eco activists because years before I have started a photographic project on the occupation of the Hambacher forest, which was occupied 2012. The occupation is still going on after 10 years. So this was a kind of similar situation, but they didn't occupy the forest because of a highway or motorway, but because they wanted to protect it against an open cast mine, a brown coal mine. We have this Hambacher mine, and they wanted to go on and they wanted to destroy RWE power group wanted to destroy the forest. So people went in, they put up tree houses, so the forest could not be felled. And so I have been working there as a photographer for about 2 years to produce a photo book, which is now also to be released in March or April. And due to that fact that quite a few of those activists also went to Damnerode forest, they knew me and they trusted me. They knew that I would not use the pictures or the film against them, that I always work with consent. That means I never filmed people who were not, who didn't give me permission to be filmed. I was always open. And also when the film was finished, I showed the film or the documentary firstly to the activists before I showed it to anybody else. So, and then it was sometimes, just come and go, and sometimes new people came and they trusted me, or they didn't trust me, or they didn't want to be filmed, even if they trusted me. So it went like that.
What an interesting process, and it's great that you received permission and that you were able to film it all. Tell me, was it you with a camera doing all the filming, or did you have multiple cameras? How did all of that work?
Yeah, I did it all on my own. I think it had a couple of reasons. First of all, I didn't have a budget to pay anybody. I didn't have to have the budget to pay an author or a sound engineer or anybody. But it was also a big advantage because it was just me getting into contact with the people in the forest. That means because I was a one-man team, I could get closer, I could get into more intimate situations, and people didn't recognize me so much as a cameraman. Some of them even thought I'm an activist too. So I had a really small camera. I'm working with a Fuji DSLM camera, which is a photo camera first, but also is capable of creating really high quality video material. So my equipment was very small, and I also worked with a drone in some shots. But most of the time I just had the small camera. Sometimes it was mounted on the gimbal. So I could always get very close to the people.
Yes, I noticed the drone shots as well. So yeah, it's beautifully photographed, I must say. Visually, it's a very stunning film. Yeah, so well done on that. But you also must have been very patient because this was shot over at least a year or 18 months, wasn't it, when this all happened?
I started in September. In fact, I started in September 2020, and the last shots I did when I was evicted from a treehouse myself on the 4th of December. So the whole process was, I can say it was 3 months, but I didn't stay there for 3 months in a row. I went there for a couple of times and I stayed for between 4 to 10 days. So altogether, I think I was in the forest for about 5 or 6 weeks. But it depended also on my schedule. I also have a family, so I had to go back home sometimes. I had to do some commercial jobs to earn money. And sometimes I stayed in the forest, but there was also a very small guest house really close to the forest. So I had a small room there where I could charge my accus and charge my energy again, and just get a bit of rest, because it was also physically quite challenging. Sometimes I had to climb up to the tree houses myself, because I had to get into the tree houses. Of course, people were living there. So at the end of the day, I was really exhausted sometimes. Yeah,
I can imagine you would be. Yes, yes. It's how incredible that is. So you shot it over that 3-month period. So talking to the activists and getting them on camera, and them being very open about talking about saving the forest and environmental issues, did they need much prompting or support, or did you just hold the camera to them and they just talked very easily?
Yes, sometimes I did not film at all. Sometimes I was just sitting with people, and sometimes a discussion evolved, and then I asked them if I could film it, and then I just let it go, because I didn't want to have too many talking heads in the documentary. Normally you have people sitting somewhere talking to the camera, explaining what has happened to them, why they do this, why they do that, and I just preferred situations where they were talking about themselves, when they were like at the end of the movie, they're talking about happiness and what makes them happy. Or there's another situation when they talk about not brutality, but about these kind of, what is it when they shout at policemen, when they shout ugly words? What's the English word for that? I just don't find it right now.
Abusive, policemen being
abusing. Yeah. So
yeah.
they talk to themselves, and I thought it looks much more natural in the film. But it meant, of course, I spent a lot of time in the forest without doing anything, because I didn't want to script the film. I didn't want to. I didn't want to tell them, no, please talk about this, talk about that. Because then I thought the discussion will not be real. So I sat sometimes with people, and because people knew me, they kept on talking, and sometimes it was really, really interesting, I think, also for the documentary.
Yes, absolutely. It really is interesting. And I know I've been to Germany a few times, several times, and Germany has a very strong environmental record. It's very keen about preserving forests and so on. So this seems very strange that they also are allowing this sort of damage to occur.
Well, I think Germany does not have such a good record in coming to environmental works. It's really, they cut down a lot of forests, and the problem with Germany is, I think, they don't react to the climate change. For example, the highway that's now going to be built through the Dannenrod forest, that was planned already more than 30 years ago. And 30 years ago, there were already citizens opposing it, and they had these initiatives against it. And in 2019, they asked people occupying the Hambach forest to come over to occupy their forest, because the government said, well, these are old plans, we need a new highway, we have this kind of statistics that we have more traffic in the future, we need more highways. And so I think Germany is not really, it's not really a green country. And I think it's a good thing that we have so much civil disobedience in Germany now, because it's the future generation of young people who realize that not enough is done to protect this planet. So what they do now is they block highways, they occupy forests, they block streets. And I think sometimes things can only change with a little bit of pressure by the people. And what the thing is that in the press, sometimes what people do in the forest, or what activists do in the forest, is not well, it's not described as it should be, because most of the people are really peaceful people. Sometimes probably they get aggressive, but when I was in the forest, I really felt that they had this kind of they were really just talking to each other really in a respectful way. Nobody was shouting anytime. And look, if somebody even outside wanted to smoke a cigarette, I was always asked, do you mind if I smoke a cigarette? So there was a lot of awareness going on. So what they also try is not, they don't only try to protect forests, but they also try to develop a different kind of communication with each other, you know. where they respect each other much more than, well, maybe in the rest of the society. It's like a laboratory of the evolving of a society. I don't know if it really would work out, because it's also kind of it's an intentional society. These people go into the forest, they go there to protect the forest, but they also go there because they want to communicate with each other in a different way. But I don't know if it really turns out, if new hierarchisms will evolve out of this, or if really people go back into their normal life, into the normal society with a change of mind and a different way of thinking.
Very interesting to hear that. And here was I thinking that Angela Merkel, I know she's no longer in charge in Germany, but I thought she was a bit more sympathetic than that.
Yeah, I think it's she did a couple of really great things when she said we are going to stop nuclear power, nuclear energy. But I think sometimes she was a little bit too hesitant. And I think also in Germany we have a really strong connection between government and companies and economy. So that means like it's all working together, and it's always if a German government wants to change something, it's always the other argument is, oh, we have so many jobs that will be cancelled in the car industry, in the building industry, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's really tough, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. Now, another aspect, and you've mentioned this briefly already, is the police, so the role of police in what was happening in the forest. And I must admit, I was expecting some sort of violence, or for the camera to be damaged by the police or whoever, I gather. But as I was watching the documentary, I noticed that there were a few police officers who were sympathetic to the protesters and so on. So tell me about your experience filming with the police there.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like, it's a little bit difficult, because if you're in a certain situation with the camera, you change the situation. The situation would be different if you wouldn't be there with your camera. So that means like journalists who have been in the forest during the eviction, I think they also protected the activists, because police didn't use so much force then, of course, because they knew it would be on camera. And so on the other hand, when I showed my film also to activists, quite a few complained that there's not so much police brutality to be seen. I mean, there was police brutality in the forest, but it happened without, you know, how does it say, Zeugen? Now you're German, I need your German language.
Yeah, I know, but no cameras were around. Yeah, yeah.
If so, and I think also at the end of the film, you can see that the special forces go into a treehouse to evict the people, and they are quite friendly. And like before, when they came up, they asked me, do you want to go down or do you want to stay to the end? And I said, no, I'd like to stay to the end and film the whole scene if that's fine. And so the policeman said, oh yeah, that's very fine with us, because we are also happy to show that what we do is right. So, and out of this, I think a very important discussion started with the policemen and the activists. But I heard from quite a few people that quite a few situations were also different, that when police went up into treehouse, that they slapped people. But you hear a lot of things, and I think it's good if I can protect people with my camera, but on the other hand, quite a lot of things will not be shown on camera. I think there's a scene where the police goes through one of these barriers and they just destroy things. They destroy material and then just walk out. So, and you see a little bit of brutality when they are pushing old people in my film. And one person is talking about his bruises, but I didn't want to concentrate on police brutality in my film anyhow, because I wanted to find some messages that people talk, but that people can take into their normal everyday life. Maybe how to deal with how to deal with their opinion, and if the opinion the opinion they have themselves is the opinion of the whole group, or if it's just an individual opinion, and what happens if I do something, do I affect other people with my doing, and all of these kind of things. So Yeah, and of course, as I'm a photographer, I want to create a powerful film with a lot of pictures, which also gives, well, that creates emotions maybe with people who watch it and who are not connected to the whole scene. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Film as an agent of change. I think that's a great way of you describing that process. So, as this is your first film, and as you say, you're a photographer, were you influenced at all when you made the film by any particular films or filmmakers?
Well, in fact, I try to use some Hollywood elements without just, having a Ridley Scott movie in mind or whatever. I really try to work with big pictures, and I try to also, to change a little bit the timeline of the events. So I sorted different things out, and I thought, where can I put a certain scene, where in which part of the documentary does it make sense, and in which part of the documentary does it create emotion. But there are quite a few documentaries, well, now as you ask me, I just don't, nothing comes to my mind, but I love watching good documentaries.
Well,
but I don't have any in mind which I can now name to you.
that's quite okay, but Herzog and others would be very influential in terms of documentary filmmaking.
Yeah.
So, and you've started to mention this, the editing process is also a very big part of putting a film together. And of course, you must have shot so much more material than you actually used. Tell me about the challenges in the editing.
I think if you edit your own material, the most challenging thing is that there's a saying, you have to kill your darlings. You're personally attached to what has happened. You're into it. You're emotionally attached, and sometimes you think a certain scene is really important because it was just so difficult to get into the scene, or it took you so long to get in there. And I think the editing, when you start editing, you have to you need a certain distance to the whole thing. So I started editing only after 2 months I was home. I just started sorting out the material because, as I said, like the last day in the forest for me was the 4th of December of 2020. So I started editing in February, and I needed the distance. And still then, it's very difficult because if you see your footage, the memories come back, of course, and then you have to find out what makes sense. And it took me, I think, altogether, I think the film was finished in September 2020. So I really edited very hard for about 2 or 3 months, and then I re-edited, I cut again, I shortened the film, I showed it to some people, and I got some advice how to make it a little bit shorter. And I think that's the other difficult thing. You have to shorten down. You have to not make it too long, because you don't want people to get nervous or to get bored when they watch your movie. Yeah.
Sure, but well done that you completed it, edited it, and here it is. So Barricade, of course, is screening at the Transitions Film Festival in Australia online, but where else has the film already been screened?
The German premiere was at the International Hofer Film Days, which is a really prestigious festival, and I was really happy. They say it's after the Berlinale. It's the second most important film festival in Germany. It has just now been screened at a festival in Germany. It's called Snowdance, so it's not Sundance from California, unfortunately. But I just got an award yesterday for the best documentary at the festival.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just I just had breakfast and I got the mail, and I couldn't just finish the breakfast. So and it's also screened in Barcelona. It's there will be another festival in Greece, Peloponnesos, and I'm now trying to find a company that brings it probably into television. But German television is very strict about this kind of unusual documentaries. They have a certain structure in their documentaries they want to show. So I now try to find an agent who supports that this film will be shown on television too. Yeah.
Okay, and there's also so many streaming services that are possible as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's possible, like video on demand or things like that. And
Yes.
there are some certain cinemas from the area where the first, sorry? There's some certain cinemas where I showed the film.
Yeah.
Now the sound is difficult. There were some certain cinemas where they showed the film, and just last week I showed it in Hessen, which is close, in an area which is close to the forest, and there were some people, some citizens who live nearby, and after the film they all cried. It was so touching. They grabbed the microphone to say something, and then they just started to cry, and because they were so overwhelmed by some of the scenes. And this is really I think it's I don't know how I made it, and I think it's a gift if you can transport emotions, and you can transport also emotions to people who are not involved in the story or in the theme. And I hope even in Australia some people will just find some sympathy for the activists.
Oh, I can assure you there are many environmental activists in Australia who would be very sympathetic to the activists in your film. So yes, I think your film will go over very well. Yeah.
Hopefully, let's see. Yeah.
So David, now that you've made Barricade, are you now considering making another film?
I do, but I don't have a real. I'm just right now looking for some people. I want to do a film on people who are on a kind of mission in their life, but I'm still sorting out. So what I'm now doing is I went back to photography. There's a small town also in Germany close to another open coal mine. It's called Lützerath. It's also occupied by people, and so I started a documentary photo project on that. And I combined these pictures with the flood disaster of the Ahr Valley in Germany. You probably have heard it. There were about 150 people dead in July. We had these big floods, and I went there a couple of times, and I really looked after a war. I mean, it was really a war zone. The houses were completely destroyed, and people lost lives and lost property. So I combine pictures of the effects of climate change with pictures of people who try to fight against climate change. So this is what I'm doing now, but I'm still having in mind to do a new documentary, but I think I will not start it before June or July. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Sure. No, I understand. And those projects sound very interesting. So hopefully they'll all work out. And so, David, great talking to you. And the last question I love asking all filmmakers, have you seen any other films, documentaries, narratives, anything recently that has impressed you?
There is one film which has really impressed me, but I haven't, which I have seen at Hove, and that was really amazing. That was on a meteorological station in the Russian Polar Sea, where people do measurements of the temperature of the water, and they live very isolated, very alone. And it's so amazing what happens around the earth sometimes. These people, they live there for a year. Once a year, a ship comes with supplies, and and the documentary makers, they follow them also, I think, for a year. And it's a small story, just somewhere at the end of the world, but it's also such a big story. And I think that's what makes sometimes documentary is so interesting. If you can you take a big story and you put it into a small story, and then so that was really amazing, because the nature, the ice, it really thrilled me. And I've seen it in Hove at the festival where my film was also premiered. So yeah, that was really fantastic.
Oh, I'll try and look out for that. That sounds really very interesting indeed.
I have to say, I have to send you the title, because I don't have the title in mind of the film. Otherwise, I would give you the title, but I can send you the title with a mail.
Yeah,
so you have it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to receive that, and then I'll see if I can look for it. Look, David, congratulations on Barricade. And Barricade is screening as part of the Transitions Film Festival this month online. And certainly I can recommend it. Definitely worth seeing as part of the Transitions Film Festival. And we've been speaking to David Klammer, who's the director of Barricade. David, thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks a lot. For me, the day now starts. For you, the day ends, but our lives will go on, and we will see and make new films. And new things we find out in our life. Yeah. Sorry for my bad English.
But yeah. I'd love to go back to Berlin soon, but who knows? David, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you very much, Peter. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.